Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how I make gnocchi. It's these little tiny, they almost look like little pasta balls, but they're, I guess, more of a floury potato ball that you drop into water to cook normally, kind of like you would cook pasta, and then you can have that with whatever kind of side dish or main meat you're having. Now, I like to make this when I have some vegetables in our garden that I just don't know how to use up anymore. You know, we can roast vegetables in the oven or cook them steam them in a pot on the stove, but sometimes that just gets a little bit overdone, or in a stew. You know, if you're feeling like switching it up somehow, you've got this vegetable in your garden and you just don't know how to use it, I feel like gnocchi is the perfect way because it's kind of this pasta-y dish that you can make, but you're incorporating vegetables, so it's also very healthy for you, but you're using up this vegetable in a way that is, well, not just eating plain vegetables, but kind of tricks you like you're eating pasta or something. If you started this video, you probably saw the thumbnail, so you have kind of an idea of what it looks like, or maybe you are familiar with gnocchi and you know. But I like to use this for, let's say, parsnips or turnips, rutabagas, kind of those things that after a while I just don't know how to use it as a vegetable, or just I'm kind of just wanting some kind of change. And so I don't have any fresh rutabagas at the moment, so I picked some up from the store. They're also called turnip purple top, I think, so they're very similar. It's kind of got this purple top and almost a yellowy flesh, so not totally a turnip. This is called rutabaga and it's got a very distinct taste. And I'm going to start by cooking this on the stove and getting it soft, kind of like you would cook potatoes. Gnocchi is normally made with potatoes, actually, I should say. Usually made with potatoes, eggs, and flour. And so these are sort of going to be the replacement of the potato. Now, because rutabaga has a very strong taste, I'm actually going to mix it with potatoes. I'll probably do 50-50 because I think this is about just over a pound and my recipe is for 2 pounds. I could just do half the recipe and stick with my rutabagas, but this has a very distinct taste, and so I think combining it with some potato will just kind of bring that down a bit but still be flavorful. So these are my rutabagas. I'm just gonna clean them up a little bit and then get them boiling on the stove, cooking like I would normally cook potatoes. And then I want to do that now because I want to give it a chance to kind of cool after I mash it. Just so it's easier to handle with my hands when I'm mixing in the flour and the egg later. So let's get started. Alright, and then I've got these 4 potatoes that I'm going to cut up as well and cook in a different pot. So they'll probably go a bit faster, these are harder. So I'll start with the rutabagas in a small pot. Now you'll notice I'm not peeling my potatoes because, well, we buy no spray organic usually, so I can trust that these skins are all right for us to be consuming. And yeah, really there's a lot of nutrients in the skins usually, so I don't have a desire to peel them. I just don't feel like we have to. Right. Wait for the kettle to boil, get everything on the stove boiling, starting with the rutabagas and then the potatoes. I'm gonna need some cream a little later. So with my morning milk, I'm just gonna scoop off a little bit of cream. Oh, that's a bit big. Scoop off a bit of this cream and save it for later when I make the sauce. Now you don't need to make a creamy sauce with butter, but I really like it, so I'm gonna just save a little bit of that. It's about a cup. And then shake up the rest of this milk. Before I add some to my cereal. Now it's a little while later and I'm just wiping the surface down because I'm going to be rolling out my gnocchi on this countertop. My potatoes and rutabaga is cooled, so now is the time to get working here. You're gonna need some flour. So I'll take that out. And also at least one egg. So I'm gonna have that ready. And just to make sure that I'm sticking to the actual amounts, I'm quickly going to measure out to make sure that I have exactly 2 pounds of the rutabaga and potato mixed together. Make a mound of that on my countertop and then add in 2 cups of flour and my egg. So that's easy, 2 pounds of whatever to 2 cups of flour and 1 egg. Now if it's still a bit sticky, like this is feeling quite a bit sticky still, you can add a bit more flour, which I'll do here. So I assume that whatever you end up using, like whatever kind of vegetable and whatever its moisture content and mushability, is that even a word? Yeah, all of that will kind of contribute to how much flour you need to use. So start off with 2 cups for 2 pounds and then add a little bit more if it feels too sticky. I'm going to try to show you what the consistency should look like when you're good to roll it out here in a minute. If you're gonna do it like this, have a butter knife ready to scrape your fingers down afterwards, because you'll most likely have dough stuck all to your hands. We definitely don't want to let any of these go to waste, because there's probably a bunch of gnocchis here stuck to my hand. Alright, now that my hands are clean, I just washed them. I'm going to use a scraper like this to scrape up the rest and sort of continue to knead this. Now you can see how this can really become just really a flavor palette. You can add salt and pepper, rosemary, thyme, oregano, kind of everything you want to flavor these gnocchi balls right here in this mixture. You can decide what flavors you can add: cheese, spinach, really anything that your heart desires. This is just a rather sort of plain gnocchi, but you can go whatever direction you want to. Or I'll show you what we're gonna do today. We're gonna mix this plain gnocchi together and then make a little flavor afterwards in which to cook them in this nice buttery creamy sauce. So either way, you can flavor a lot of it now right here in this mixture, or make a yummy sauce afterwards. Which I guess this process is very similar to making pasta. Very similar, except you don't need any fancy kitchen equipment to thin it out or whatever the case. Make linguine, but rather we're just gonna roll it by hand. Very, very easy. Alright, now this is sort of what you want your dough to look like. Let me give you a close-up and you'll see sort of the consistency that I'm talking about. So I can touch this with my hand without getting too much stuck to my fingers. Still a little bit moist though. And we'll pick that out. And I can just easily use this scraper to keep kind of kneading the dough from here on. But you can see it's sitting nicely together, but still a bit of moisture as it sticks to the scraper. Well, now that you're seeing a close-up, you can also see some of our Rutabaga bits in here. I probably could have cooked that a bit softer, but it'll be alright. And I'm pulling out any skins I see here, because that may not be so flavorful from the potatoes. But I think we're pretty much ready to roll out here. So let's get on to the next step. Now it's helpful to have a tray or a cookie sheet or something ready, either with flour or parchment paper, where you can just put the final little gnocchi pieces before we go ahead and bake them later. You could leave them on the countertop too, but if I don't use all of this right away, I may freeze what's left over. So yeah, I just have a sheet usually. Now flour your hands, break off a little piece like I just did here, and now we're going to roll. I do the pre-roll, kind of started in my hands. This is a lot to work with. Something small like this. Just start a pre-roll, and then we'll keep rolling here. Now I'm gonna grab a clean knife because it'll just be easier to cut. And now gnocchi is nothing fancy. I'm just taking little bits like this and popping it right here on this tray. You could use a fork to make a little bit of a design. Just don't press too hard because it's still a small material. But I just usually do a little blub like this. And then do that for a little while until all of that is used up. Alright, that is a lot of gnocchi, but it'll be so good, and whatever is left over we'll be able to freeze and use for another evening, so that's great. Now I'm going to get to working on the sauce. So I'm going to use my trusty food processor, which honestly I don't even remember the last time I cut an onion or garlic, grated cheese. It's just so quick. So if you do not know of the power of a food processor yet, let me show you how quickly you can chop onions and garlic. And man, if you need to have some time saved, this is your machine. This is not an ad, but I feel like I can always speak so highly of them that they may as well pay me to advertise for them. But you can put all of these parts into the dishwasher, so it really saves me time. If I had to hand wash everything, I probably would not use this as often, but I use it pretty much every night for cooking if I'm gonna do any kind of garlic or onions to chop quickly, or lots of vegetables, grate any cheese. This is my machine. So let me show you how quickly it happens. Okay, enough bragging about the food processor. Add a bit of oil in your cast iron pan, or any pan. I'm just loving my cast iron these days. And heat up the pan. Now while I'm waiting for the cast iron pan to heat up, I'm gonna get my garlic ready so long. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I just did with the onions. Peel off the skins, add them in there, and chop it for a few seconds. Alright, now what I should add here is that this is actually a lot of gnocchi. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's quite filling. So I'm going to start with this for now. Yeah, gnocchi can be very filling. So I'm going to start with this and save the rest of this for another evening. But just because I would like to make dinner, I've got the sauce going, and then I've got these ready to drop in and cook with them. Oh yeah, and I should mention we are 2 people currently. One day, soon 3. But 2 adults eating from this, so that'll be plenty for us. Now I like using olive oil when I do anything basically on the stove, but there's something about butter that just gives a little bit of extra taste and flavor. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of butter to this as well. And get that melted before I add in my garlic. So my, close to burning. The onions and the garlic is sauteed, so before this burns, I'm going to add my chicken broth. And I don't need much, so I'm just gonna pour in. Yeah, that's pretty much good. And then the cream I scooped off earlier, I'm going to add that in here as well. Delicious. Get that going so long. Now while that is going, I'm going to start a pot on this side for my gnocchi. Now I'm going to add some other Italian herbs that I have here to this sauce. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. And then I'm going to grate some cheese. Parmesan is best if you have it, to add in here with this sauce. Of course, I'm going to use my very quick Cuisinart food processor. Oh yes, and I also have some spinach, kale, and parsley that I'm going to chop up and add in here as well. Now I'm kind of going to do 2 things at once in this corner. I'm going to start the gnocchi over here, just dropping them into the water to cook for a few minutes. Just add a bit of salt in here. That should boil really quickly. And then over here, I'm going to chop my mushrooms and my kale. And all the other greens. Oh, I only have 3 mushrooms, so we'll use those up. Bit of this parsley, which actually I'm going to do in the food processor. That'll make it better. Nice. I'm gonna save this right for the end in a little bowl. Okay, but the water's ready, so let's add some gnocchi first. It's not boiling yet, actually. Give it a second. So now I'm going to let them cook until they go to the top, and then once I see some at the top, I'm going to start my timer for 1 minute, and then scoop them out once a minute is over. Now if you've got a handy little tool like this, that'll make it very easy. And I'm just gonna pop it into this plate. While I'm waiting, I'm going to add kale to my sauce over here and stir that in with the mushrooms. Sometimes if I'm worried that they're sticking together, I just stir the water with the back of a ladle. I'm waiting for this gnocchi to float to the top, and then I'm going to start 1 minute on my timer. Alright, now sometimes there's foam on the top and you can't really see what's going on, but they're still, oh, they just got to the top, so start my timer and give that a second. Now I'm really multitasking because I've got some minced meat I'm starting in the back there. And I'm quickly cleaning up while I wait for this all to keep cooking. Alright, there goes my timer. So I'm picking out my gnocchis. And then I'll just do the final batch. Now my mince back here is totally very, very plain. I'm just doing some meat so we can have some meat with this meal tonight. So just adding a bit of salt. It's gonna already be so flavorful just with that gnocchi sauce that we just need a little bit of ground beef to accompany it. So I thawed some up for that, and I just added a bit of salt. So I thawed some up for that. Ooh, and this is cooking fast. So let me just clear off the steam here again to see if I can spot any gnocchis at the top. None yet. Although close. They come up pretty quick. Here they all start popping up. This can be high, yep. Whew. Alright, these all floated to the top. So let's get them all out of here. Alright, now my final step with these gnocchis is to get them sauteing in a pan. So I'm just going to use my very quick pan here with some butter and get them sauteed fast before adding them to my sauce. Now this will just give those gnocchis a light browning, ever so slightly. You don't have to do this step, but I think it just tastes much better. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me while we make gnocchi together, and I hope that either you've learned how to make this now at home, and that it has been exciting for you to figure out that it is really not that difficult to make gnocchi, and that you can incorporate all kinds of vegetables in your garden that you just maybe are out of ideas for how to use, or you just really like gnocchi and you want to make some at home and try it with variations of different vegetables. If you don't want to use the rutabaga or any other vegetables, you could just make this plain straight with potatoes. And so just use this recipe in the description box below and then replace whatever vegetable I'm using with potatoes. That'll taste just as good. So yeah, I hope that you found this helpful. You can usually find me here in the kitchen cooking or baking, or out in the garden growing some of our food, or preparing for some kind of trip as we're heading somewhere exploring and on an adventure. So if that's interesting to you, would you consider following along with us, subscribing to this channel, and then you can catch some of our upcoming content. Alright, see ya, bye.